The Devil's Pact, the Satanic Bargain. Well, let's talk about that. Why would you even do it? And do you forfeit your soul? Well, it's really the ultimate rebellion against the thraldom of the powers that be, in a sense, and it's breaking out of the human ghost in the machine. So it encompasses many things, and of course it's got a dark reputation, Faustian, um, but if you don't go dark you don't get to the light, really. It's or the enlightenment. Essentially, the way it works with me is that clients come to me and I do a ritual at the Devil's Punchbowl, which you saw at the beginning, and there's a bit more of it now. It's a unique place, actually, out in the countryside, off the beaten track, and it's got a rich folklore concerned with Old Nick, as you might imagine from the name. Now, the pool itself can be full in a heat wave and empty during a downpour. And this is what mystified people long ago, and it was the work of Old Nick. It's probably more to do with geological sediment below the earth. It goes back to interglacial times, and so it's very ancient, and was one of those places that got utilised by the ancient Britons as a place of power, if you like, a sacred place. Well, it's the perfect place to call upon Lord Satan himself and make the bargain, which I should add is a bargain between equals. He may be more powerful, being a very ancient force that goes way back before the Bible and the various references to Lord Satan. On that note, we should say that the other aspect of the Satanic Pact is realizing that we live in an inverse world. So the Bible, the good book, if you get into the earlier translations, you will find that there is no God in the Bible. It's the Elohim, and they seem to have been plural. There was Elion, Yahweh, and so forth. Obviously, theologians will contend they're all names for the one God. But it's not over convincing now with the latest evidence from the best translations. But even within the modern Bibles, and it's been, edited, rewritten, over 2,000 years, but it's a book of genocide. It's not like something you would live by. It is not the good book. So you see what I mean by we live in an inverse world. We're going back to making the pact. So I do the ritual work here at the Devil's Punchbowl. And once all that is done, called upon Satan, done sigils, cast them into the pool itself, the Devil's Punchbowl, I then head off round about 70 miles from here to a small town, rather quaint, in East Suffolk called Bungay. And there is the Devil's Stone, another one rich in folklore, going way back, and the stone itself again interglacial. It's very ancient, and so St Mary's Church there in the churchyard, that's where the second half of it is done, and the whole thing is cemented, set in stone at the Devil's Stone. But of course, St Mary's Church, the folklore, well, it's not folklore, actually. It was reported back in, I think it's 14th century, that the church was attacked by a terrifying demon dog called Black Shuck. crashed through the doors. There was an almighty thunderstorm going on, and terrified the congregation. I think more than one dropped dead of fright, and some were injured. And on the wooden door, the very ancient wooden door, it said you can still see the claw marks, and there really are marks there. Make of that what you will. But on that very same day, firstly, Black Shuck, the demon dog, attacked another church, and this is nearer the coast in East Suffolk. And same thing, went at the door, claw marks, and congregation terrified or dropping dead. And so it's a wild story of this fearsome beast. Some of the folklore going on from the actual historical reports suggests that it was the devil, shape-shifting. So you can see how rich Britain is in folklore surrounding Old Nick. Britain is the most secular country in the world. There isn't that much Christianity going on. It's very diverse. There's lots of everything you can imagine, from occultists to pagans to Muslims, you name it, and still probably a few Christians. Yes, we got lots of historic churches that are very well worth a visit for the architecture and the sheer peace of the churchyards. But on a Sunday, you're lucky to see 2 or 3 cars. We're not a Christian nation. But what happens after you've taken up my Devil's Pact? Well, it lasts a year and can, of course, be renewed. And there's one ritual a month, boosting everything: your luck, your wealth, your empowerment. And I consult, with you and say, is there anything going on that you want me to deal with? And then the monthly ritual will be targeted at something you deal with. I've got entrepreneurs, I've got people from even corporations on the Pact. And if they wish, advice from me, I give it. So the advice can involve everything from PR and marketing to strategic advice on anything going on in someone's life. And that's because I have a very diverse background that includes national newspaper journalist, working with big companies in the technology field, communications, that kind of thing, being involved in IPOs. And so, there's a lot of advice. And with the Satanic Pact, that's exactly how it should be. You've got to become a well-rounded person that can control your emotions, be in control of your being. And that is part of it, being able to stop internal dialogue, become highly self-aware, self-remember, and that basically means being aware when emotions build and could send you out of control and gets you nowhere. Very much like anger, seeing red. You intervene before it happens, because that brings you great power in the world. Whatever your ambitions are, whatever your goals are, these are key things. And remember, historically, the Devil's Pact, Lord Satan, let's just go back to the poet Lord Byron. I think it was Robert Southey who was denouncing what he saw as the satanic influence on literature. Now, Byron wrote, Don Juan. Cain is the famous one, which was involved Satan. And you could ask, so was Byron a Satanist? Well, he was a romantic Satanist, and Satan was the arch rebel. And obviously, if you read the Bible, which most Christians haven't, you realise, well, they can't have done, you realise that, who was the good guy, or rather the rational guy? Well, it was Lord Satan. in the stories, you know, and legends that are the Bible. And so people like Lord Byron obviously took that side, because at that time, you know, Christianity, while it was never really accepted in Britain, it was kind of forced, you know, with the Roman Catholic Church. It was political. So Britain is completely unlike America. It does not have that form of charismatic Christianity, which I tend to call fascist Christianity, quite bluntly. Look at the Bible Belt. What is it? Fascist, let's face it. Telling you what to do, you know, it's just beyond belief, and the education is incredibly limited, because if they had education, they'd realise it was a load of nonsense. But that's by the by. And of course there was John Milton with his Paradise Lost. So, you know, hundreds of years ago, there was a real current in Britain. It was satanic. The Hellfire Club, you know, founded, run by Sir Francis Dashwood and various other aristocrats. I mean, that was a rebellion. There were more than one Hellfire Club at different times. Ireland had them. Up in Norwich, actually, here, I think there was early Hellfire Clubs. And they weren't half, some of them were young reprobates, and they were railing against Christianity, and some of them would not condone it, but they would attack vicars, which are like pastors if you're not from Britain. Yeah, so a vicar is sort of like a preacher, but they don't really preach. They don't really talk about God. You know, if you turn up there, it's like, yeah, probably best not to. I mean, they do when they do their services, but it's not something. Well, politicians can't mention God because everyone thinks, nah, not voting for him. He's a nutter, or she. And yeah, we're not really Christian. And so you can see this current is so strongly in the history of Britain. So if you want the satanic capital of the whole world, well, it's Britain, or maybe we'd say England, because Scotland has a certain amount of religion going on. And where I mentioned I do the second part of the Devil's Pact, the first big day's kind of ritual. Bungay, the small town in East Suffolk, was dubbed the satanic capital of Britain. Not necessarily because of Black Shuck, the demon dog, or the Devil's Stone, but it was simply the 2021 census. More than a few people put down as their religion Satanism. So, you know, that was a news story. And it's pretty cool. You wouldn't think it if you went there. There's a lot of boomers, you know, they've got money, you know, and somewhat artistic, literary. You know, it's nice. I mean, that's the thing. I certainly wouldn't criticise them. It's rather pleasant. But, yeah, but it's, you know, it's a kind of boomer city. You think to yourself, well, you're a Satanist, you know. I mean, I really, when I go there, I should start asking people. And it could, of course, have been wags in the pub that did that, you know, and made sure all their mates put that down, because they you know, again, it's that current of Britons don't care, you know, they're going to have a bit of fun, and they're not going to be told what to do either. And so it's very much a satanic country, Britain. I mean, some people could say, well, isn't Satanism and all of that evil? Well, turn the word around and you've got live. It's live your life. You know, don't harm others, don't harm animals either. And essentially living a rational life. You can, of course, drift off into visionary and have all sorts of fun with that. Why not? But it is basically rational, living an objective life, not being swept away by emotion and harming and people and making people suffer, which is what happens. You know, wars, yes, we know they're about money, politics, but equally the people are often consumed by emotion, and they, you know, indulge in the genocide, which their governments obviously want in many cases. And so it's strongly about that. It's about becoming your own God. And that means being able to, first thing you need to be able to control is you, your whole being. So you're not swept away by the fickle winds of emotion that will lead you going round and round in circles, or you'll just be in a right old state, angry at people, saying it's other people's fault and all that. Everything's in fact your fault. And so the true Satanist is rational and objective and recognises, look at yourself first, change the patterns that you're stuck in, actually be self-aware. Don't be in a trance unless you decide to be and enjoy the visionary of it. Otherwise, if you're in a trance going about your life, you're not remotely in control of it. Whatever happens, happens to you. And so being self-aware means aware of everything around you. That's how you begin. Aware of your mentation, the words you're thinking, all of that. And when you can control it, like you can stop thinking. So that's key. And just being aware of your surroundings, get out of your head into your body. Be aware of the senses, your sensory systems, what's going on. So the more you do that, the more you do become your own God. And there's no doubt about that. So to sum up, the devil's pact is simply that. Become your own God.